good day, and welcome to this show of truth. What is truth? Truth is, capital T truth, is what includes everything, and lower T truth might be the things we might think are true in any moment, but could change in any given moment. So the reason why I'm coming on and I'm sharing today, and you're going to see me eating some food and some garlic because I'm hungry, and I also am really passionate about what I'm going to share about, and I felt like coming on even though I'm going to be eating. Why? Because life is imperfect. I am perfectly imperfect. You are perfectly imperfect. Yum, celery, garlic, tahini. I may record this video again at another time. This message needs to be shared. And maybe I'm distracting you by eating. Or not. So, my intention with sharing right now is to illuminate some truth, some capital T truth within this dark sphere of social media. This sphere of social media has been controlled and manipulated by all kinds of people who are selfish and greedy. And you know what? We, you, me, also might have some selfishness and greediness in us that we also need to work on eradicating. Self-righteousness. Ways that we separate each other and ourselves by these ideas that we can be perfect. So what I'm speaking to right now is the fact that so many people go on social media and they compare themselves to other people. Comparison is a trap. And so my intention with coming on here is to illuminate and, dispel any potential of anyone comparing themselves to me in any way. And I'm going to share some personal struggles so that there's some illumination behind my identification as being a healer or a teacher or someone who can bring any sort of wisdom. So what you might not know about me is I was born in San Diego, Encinitas, California. I was born into a family that was a very working middle class family. And what I mean by working middle class is we lived in Encinitas, but we never really had the amount of money that that would afford us luxuries like vacations or extra trips and travels. We were living basically month to month, and my parents worked very hard, and I never saw them. Not never, but it was rare that I saw them. And it was rare because they were working so much. I remember comparing myself to these people that were my classmates whose parents had more than rent month to month. My classmates' parents, not all of them, but I would compare myself to the ones whose families would go on vacations, who drove nice cars like Mercedes, etc., while we had our one Toyota minivan that I even had until I was in my 20s as my car, because that's the way that my family use their finances, while still the neighbors in my parents' family's neighborhood drive Mercedes, and all their kids have new cars, and they're always going on trips, and they renovated their house, whatever. We always seem to be just getting by. Now, this is a pattern I've had to work through in my life, and I'm still working through, but there's a transformation and a transition that's happened, which is that I've been living primarily from a gift economy, which means that I've given what I can when I can, and I've received gifts from others from their generous heart. And there's been many moments in which I didn't even have food to eat. I remember several times where one time where I was crying because I didn't have money to buy French fries from McDonald's, and I don't even like McDonald's, but they have dollar French fries, and I didn't even have $1 to buy French fries. when I lived in Los Angeles, and there was a time when I was crying because I didn't even have some change, quarters or pennies, to buy a sweet potato from the grocery store to cook, nor did I have a place to cook it. And I remember feeling super isolated in these moments because what I noticed was that, and I made a video about this before, which maybe I'll try and find and share, around the hoarding energy of those who are wealthy, which is, again, this Facebook platform is controlled by those who are hoarding their wealth. People who think that if I share with the poor that I'm going to be less rich. Well, the reality is that we're all fucking related, and if your lifestyle is contributing to someone else suffering, even if you think you're happy, you're suffering. So I might be all over the place, but this is practice, because this is very important share for me. So about 6 years ago, or sometime around there, I was working as a healer. I lived at a friend's house who was helping me out, and I was working at an acupuncture clinic doing deep soul healing work. I got hired as a massage therapist, but every person I worked with, we were releasing deep emotional trauma, deep trauma from past lives, and things that these people didn't even realize that they were still holding on to. As I work really, really deep, I work with deep childhood trauma and ancestral trauma and soul trauma, and help people to release these deep-seated things so that we can experience a new world. Well, I was feeling as if this space of working for this massage clinic was not large enough to contain, it wasn't a large enough container to contain the energy that was wanting to move through in the healing work that I was doing. So I chose to, because I saw all my friends, not all my friends, but I saw all these people creating businesses and on Facebook leading these, really wealthy spiritual businesses. I was inspired, and so I left this job of working at this acupuncture clinic to start my own practice, because I wanted to create a container that was large enough to contain the amount of energy that I was working with through these healing sessions. I had no skills in business, no skills in marketing, none of that. So I was kind of going out cold. So what happened was I made not any money at the beginning. And I kept comparing myself to these people who were spiritual leaders and spiritual healers making all this money. And I would go on Facebook and I would see people who were having success. And I tried that technique and I tried that marketing technique and I tried all these techniques and I kept failing. Failing meaning it didn't work for me. So what happened was I went into very, very dark spaces within myself of feeling not good enough. I got to reevaluate all of my insecurities around feeling like I didn't have what it takes to really be in this world, to really provide for myself. This culture tells us that we need to be independent, that we need to be self-providing in order to really fulfill our purpose here. Well, the trick and the joke is on us if we believe that, because really we're all in this together. And so there's been a long journey that we've all been going on, and that I'm still going on, and that we're still going on, and we better catch up with it, but that we're really all in this together. And so my attempts to try that program and that program to learn how to market my healing work really fell through, and I didn't get to serve in the way that I wanted to serve, but I was on a deep inner journey. I was on a deep inner journey of navigating my own attachments to having money, to having a nice house, to having a car, to validate the fact that I was doing okay, that I was actually fulfilling my role in this world. Because really, ultimately, I feel all of our inner children just want to find our place. We all want to find our place in this big circle of connection, this big circle of community. We all just really want to be in our right place, because we know somewhere so deep inside that when we're inhabiting that right relationship with ourselves and our life, we're going to feel free. Freedom isn't about how much money you have, how much money I have, how much money they have, how much nice things we have. It's not about any of that. It's about feeling freedom and feeling connected. And sometimes feeling connected is the gateway to feeling freedom. Actually, in fact, feeling connected is the gateway to freedom. So what happened is I ran out of money. I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't do anything, and I kept trying. I kept taking the classes. I kept looking for teachers. I kept reaching out and saying, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be humble. I'm willing to admit I know nothing, except I have this gift inside that I want to share. And so moment by moment by moment, every time I studied a new class or a new technique in order to learn how to share my gift, I realized I was giving my power away. Each time I tried to get a certification to prove something so that I could survive and provide for myself in the world, I realized I was handing my power over willingly to people who were willingly receiving that power. Why? To make themselves feel better. Be mindful when you find a teacher who helps you at the expense of your own self-confidence. If you feel worse after a healing session, if you feel like that teacher is better than you or knows more than you or anything like that, consider that they're still operating from greed and selfishness and they have their own work to do. Maybe take what you can from them, like as far as the wisdom that is valid, and then toss everything else away, because we're all equal. We're all in this circle together. We all came to planet Earth to study something, to learn something, to grow. And it's not like your growth path is better than my growth path. That person's more enlightened than that person because they have that thing and they don't have that thing. You don't know where people are secretly suffering when they placate that they have a lot of money and a lot of success and a lot of the woo-woo whatever. You don't know where they're secretly suffering inside unless you really listen with the heart, unless you really feel inside them where they're coming from, right? And this is challenging because it's our ego that wants to attach to seeing something we like and seeing something that looks good and saying, ooh, I want that. And therefore, if that person has that, then they must be doing something right. Wrong. Because even if you want that thing that they have, your path to getting it might look completely different than the way they've gotten it. And actually, it's most likely going to look completely different. So coming back to, I am without any money, I'm without a house, and I'm living out of my car humbly. You know, I'm going to parks, I'm going to nature, I'm praying with the trees, and I'm calling in the energy, and I'm using my healing gifts now because I don't know how to market to the mainstream, because mainstream is still focused on money, and it's still focused on looks, and it's still focused on perfection, looking perfect. And I realize I look kind of messy. I look kind of tattered. You know, I'm wearing a jacket that I've worn for several days, and I'm wearing hand-me-down secondhand clothes that I'm committed to working in on the land here at this community I'm staying near, right? And I'm working it, and every day I wake up and I ask, Spirit, guide me to the place I need to go. Guide me to where I'm most of highest service. And I would be guided to go to a park. I'd be guided to sit in a park and pray and meditate. Well, a bunch of people with a bunch of money moved around me. I could feel judgment. I could feel condemnation. I had people call. I remember one time I was in my car meditating and praying and calling in the energy of the highest love for humanity. And I was probably moving my hands some way like this and calling in the energy and like being with that flow and that feminine creative power that's wild, and we don't know where it's going, but we can trust it because it's wise. And I'm following that flowing free energy, and this woman whose house I'm parked outside of calls the cops. I didn't know she called the cops because she said I was acting erratic. So the cops come, knock on my window. I'm actually at this time meditating because the energy had calmed down. And the cop asks me, are you okay? The cops were called on you because you're looking erratic. And I look at him and he smiles at me and he feels my heart and he says, you don't look erratic. And I said, yeah, I was meditating and I was breathing and I was moving the energy, and now I'm meditating and I'm integrating. And he goes, yeah, well, you know, people are really uptight on this street and they're really protective, and you look like a safe person and it is a public street, so have a good day, bless you. I got out of my car, I chose to dance on the middle of the street and kind of freak this lady out in her house a little bit, because there's this part of me that really enjoys being a sacred rebel. It enjoys playing the crazy person sometimes, because I like triggering people to get out of their linear ways of thinking. And even if it means they judge me because I'm kind of waving my arms in the air and looking kind of freaky and wild and free, then so be it, because people need to get out of the linear way of thinking and expand their perspectives of what's possible. So again, I'm in Encinitas. I'm living out of my car, and my family lives in Encinitas. And they don't even let me stay at their house because why? I'm some crazy, weird, kooky, crazy person in their eyes. because they're still operating from this very linear, three-dimensional perspective. And I'm operating from every morning, wake up, God, guide me. Great Spirit, guide me. Great Wild Feminine, guide me to where I can be most of service. Because I see where we're going as a collective, and where we're going as a collective is to break off the chains of the patriarchy, and to break off the chains of control, and to break off the chains of this paradigm in which we think we have to know where we're going logically in order to feel safe and protected. And we feel like we have to have a security system of all these walls of blankets of protection in order to feel like we're actually safe, when in reality, your body will die, it will be recomposted by the earth, and it came from the earth out of a magical miracle that is your mother's womb, and that will continue to happen, and you don't have to fear anything because the earth will catch you. So this process of living out of my car, not having money, and not having anyone that supported me. I remember asking wealthy tribe in conscious community, hey, do you have a couple bucks? I don't have any money. People I knew had more than enough. And they would straight up look at me in the face and tell me they couldn't help me, while their children sat next to them. This actually happened, picking up leaves off the ground and handing me leaves, looking at their mom like, hey, it's really this easy. You just get it out of your pocket and you hand it to her. That's what community is about, because the children of the future know. And so I watched this and I grieved deeply, because my inner child knows connection too. And I grieved for this loneliness. I grieved for all people who feel like they have to protect themselves in order to feel safe, whilst I didn't have money, whilst I continued to trust, because faith without works is dead. If you say that you're in faith and you're not tested and tried by life to step into deeper faith, your faith isn't anything. And that's what I had to continue to do, is continue to crack open and not have enough and still trust that everything was going to be okay. And I'll tell you, it was a fucking wild ride. And so while y'all might think all these things about all these things, spirituality isn't some perfect thing. We have to live we have to practice what we preach. And I practice faith healing. I practice living in the trust and the truth that we're all connected and that it's all beautiful. And so I've had to practice what I preach by living it, by having no fucking clue what I'm doing and moving forward anyways. I remember my sister, I have younger sisters, like blood sisters, and I remember wanting to go to events and having no money for the event, but just great spirits like, you're meant to go to this event. And I would walk up to the event and they'd let me in the door without any pay, like as if I was meant to be there. And my sister would watch and be like, how'd you get in for free? And I had to pay. And it's like, this is what trust is. This is what faith is. I don't even have any money to pay, but they know that I'm supposed to be here, and so they're letting me in, because the message of our hearts speaks louder than the conditioning of our mind. And so we need to have massive heart awakening, people. Crack that shit open, bare yourself, be vulnerable, be willing to be wrong. And so then I went through processes of condemning these people who had all this money, who weren't helping me. I was mad, I was resentful, pissed at the man, pissed at this, pissed at the government, pissed at whatever. Why is there not change? That didn't get me anywhere either. And so I was alone. I was very lonely. But surrounded by life and feeling the connection of earth, and feeling the faith that if I kept going in this path, that all would be well. When COVID hit, I still had no money. I still had, I was living, like I mentioned earlier in this video, off a gift economy, meaning I would be guided, give all your money to that homeless person right there, even if the homeless person had more money than me. And then later on that day, I met someone, they'd hand me a bouquet of flowers because they were inspired. And I started feeling this connection of these people who are living out of this trust. There are people on this planet who are living out of this trust, who recognize others that are living from this trust, and who are willing to play in that game. Because there's lots of games we can play on the earth, and some are called greed, and some are called selfishness, and some are called faith and trust and unconditional giving and receiving. And the faith and the trust and the unconditional giving and receiving is the game I choose to play. And I choose to play it by speaking my prayer through my actions every moment that I can muster. And sometimes it looks freaking treacherous and scary and dark. But the thing is I'm okay with dying. I'm okay with dying to this old self, because there's something new that wants to be born, and it's different than what we've known. And if we want something different, and I know you've heard this, if you want something different than what you've had, you got to do something different than what you've ever done. And that looks scary. And it's just the mind that thinks we're going to die, because freaking this life is eternal. It's eternally going on and on and on, and the universe is expanding and contracting and morphing in every moment. Our life, this one body, is not the limit of me. I know this because of near-death experience. I know this because in that near-death experience, I remembered my choice to be here and my eternal nature. And I knew that my choice to be here and my choice to live in this love was going to look like a lot of shit for a while. And it did. This near-death experience happened when I was 14 years old. I'm now 29, and it's been a lot of darkness and a lot of loneliness because for a long time we've been choosing to live out of fear as a collective. And living out of fear and being surrounded by people who live out of fear is a really fearful and scary place. But we're being beckoned into living from trust and living from faith. And what do I say again? Living from faith and living from trust looks like we have to practice that even when there's no logical reason to practice it. Even when everyone on the media is saying, this is the scary thing, don't go traveling, don't do that thing, be afraid of this, be afraid of that. What faith looks like is listening to everything around you saying don't do it and following that inner voice within, even if it's small, that knows that there's a different way. If I listened to anyone that gave me advice other than one specific teacher on my path, during these last 7 years of my life, I would not be feeling as free as I do right now in all the craziness. And I don't know where more money's coming from. I did go to Costa Rica. I'm in Costa Rica right now. It's beautiful. It's raining and it's freaking rains all the time, and bless the rain for sacred rain, right? And I'm not going to tell you that, oh my God, look at this beautiful la 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 place. Although yes, I am, but I'm going to say I came here with just enough money to get here and a couple $100, having no freaking idea what was going to happen next. I had people telling me not to go. I had people telling me all this kinds of fearful stuff. And you know what? I was afraid about it a bit because I'm sensitive, because I'm still learning to strengthen my own sense of self. Humility, I have no idea what I'm doing, but my heart knows something. It knows love is unconditional, persistent, consistent, and undying. And that's what I choose to follow. And my point with coming on here today was to freaking blast some kind of crack through this like internet web sphere to like bring some truth, like capital T truth, to this place, because it's not about the image. It's not about what things look like. It's about what they feel like. When you go into a space and you go into a place and everyone's saying they're happy, if you feel the vibe, dude. You feel my vibe right now. You feel where I'm still holding on. You feel where I'm free. You feel where I'm crazy. I might trigger the fuck out of you. Know that if I trigger you, it's because shit's still going on inside you. Maybe also still going on inside me. You get to decide what that is. You get to pick the playgrounds you want to play in. This is no longer your parents drop you off at the school that you hate going to. This is now you are an adult and you got to pick the playground you want to play in. You want to play in that job's playground while you give your attention and your energy to someone who's greedy and selfish? That's your choice. What is your prayer? Where are you praying from? So for a while, in this last 5 years, in this last 6 years, I have had jobs, not regular jobs. I have worked here and there and over here and over there to make some money to be able to live. And sometimes like I mentioned, I had no money. And what stuck out to me throughout this whole time is very specific intentions of working in playgrounds where everyone was praying for good change. So if I could see that I was working minimum wage to make someone at the top a lot of money and they were not an ethical person, or they were still using their money for greed and selfishness, I couldn't work that job for long. If I absolutely had to work that job, I knew exactly why I was working it. I worked it for whatever reason, and I made sure that I didn't take the job out of fear. Because the thing is when we make a decision out of fear of there not being something else that will come, that other thing will never come. If we open up our perspective and our consciousness and we let go of the thing that we think is bringing us safety and security, then what will come in its space is something that's actually more aligned with our truth, that's more aligned with trust. And so what would happen is every time I let go of this thing that brought me comfort, whatever it was, and I opened myself to the possibility that even in this absence of things, something new and beautiful could come. Guess what? Something new and beautiful could come. And so since then, I've been making connections with people all over the world that share in this vision of trust, that share in this vision of, I'm going to trust that if I give to you right now because you really need something, that I will be provided for. And I don't need to get it back from you. Unconditional giving and receiving isn't, if I give to you, you got to give to me in the same amount. Nope, that's not unconditional giving and receiving. Unconditional giving and receiving is, if I give to you, I know I'm giving to the whole universe because you are me. We are one. And that's going to come back at some point. We live in a dualistic world. We live in a balanced magnetic world of light and dark and polarity. It's beautiful. And those are always working together. And so we can trust that if we truly let go and surrender, something will come back. We don't need to know where it's coming from. But we need to live from that place of trust, because if we close ourselves off and we contract, we're not opening ourselves up to the potential of the universal transformational power that is our true nature. Our true nature is magic, is miracles. You hear a lot about Jesus, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about Jesus coming. A lot of the Bible and the biblical stuff says that this is the time of the second coming or whatever, and I don't really subscribe to religion because the Bible's been fucked with so much and the story has been mutilated to paint a picture of the patriarchy being better, because there were also a lot of other prophets. There were lots of other people doing miraculous work, and there are Christ-embodied people on the planet right now performing miracles just as Christ did. And sex is a good thing when it's done from love. And we don't have to be married, because marriage is our connection to the holy divine within us. And the holy divine within us rests in our heart, which is what Jesus taught. So in this space of unconditional giving and receiving, we're in this Christ consciousness frequency, this frequency of love embodied on planet Earth, which means we have to trust. We have to be willing to go into the darkness, willing to surrender, willing to receive new life. And we need not feel shame for what we have done. We need not feel ashamed of the places that we feel ashamed of. We need to bring unconditional love and acceptance to those places, for the confusion can lead to clarity when we surrender. And the part that I was feeling like I want to complete is that there's people operating in trust and love and unconditional acceptance on the planet right now. And we are working together to give what we can, when we can, to pollinate and seed a world in which everyone is cared for, everyone is provided for, everyone has more than enough, because nature is prosperous and abundant. There is so much rain falling down right now, more than I personally can drink in my life, because nature is abundant, nature is prosperous. And so maybe practice giving more than you can sometimes, even at your own expense, and trust that you are going to be okay. You are going to be provided for no matter what, and in all matter. You are provided for in all matters. Life is mystery. Life is miracle. Your life is a miracle. It is a miracle that consciousness and spirit comes in from some unknown place and comes into a woman's body and is born as a new being. That's a freaking miracle. You are that miracle. Remember to remember to remember that life was given to you freely. Your mother sacrificed time, resources, food, shelter, to have you sit here and watch this right now, if you're even going to watch it. And so practice being that generosity for the world. Practice forgiving your ancestors. Practice forgiving those people who have hurt you, because it's been out of fear and not out of love. Love is free. And so may your heart be free to love, and may this illuminate some form of magic in your life, that you remember that you don't need to hold on to a dang thing in order to live your best life, and that you don't need to compare yourself to anyone, because it's going to look different for you. Even if you want what someone else has, the way you're going to receive that is going to look different. And even if doing it the way they do it and getting what they have works for a while, it's not going to work forever, because you're here to carve out your own destiny and your heart's here to live its own legacy. So live that legacy. Be the leader inside you that knows, I love you, I honor your sacred path and all the choices you're choosing. You get to choose in every moment. Bless your sacred life. Namaste, brother, sister. We're one. Remember.